Welcome back, everyone, to The Walk. This is episode 3 now. The first 2 episodes have been really well received. I think we're up to like 100 followers now on the Instagram page. A lot of people reaching out through messages and comments, just saying that what we're doing and what we're discussing is really touching certain spots with them, and is obviously allowing them to feel like they have a safe and honest space to be able to hear things and relate to some of the things that have been discussed. I'll just take a moment to obviously say the biggest thing you can do to grow this community is to follow on whatever platform you're listening on, or subscribe to the channel. That's how we grow as one, and we can sort of get this to reach a lot more people throughout the journey. I don't do it for that reason. I'm not all about likes and comments and stuff, but to be able to grow this community, that's what we need to be doing. So if you are someone who is listening, haven't subscribed or followed yet, it would mean a lot if you could, because this is something that I sort of said in the last episode, that would love to be able to do this full time, or at least a lot more frequently. So a little bit goes a long way. But yeah, I do want to just thank everyone who has been a part of it. And especially with the last episode, it was quite a longer one than the first. And it was something that's been hard for me to talk about. And I'm sure there's other people who find it very difficult to talk about circumstances like that in their lives. It's great to know that this is opening a space for a lot of people to be able to come forward and feel like they have somewhere to go to and a set of ears to listen to. So I really, really do appreciate it. So yeah, I suppose we'll get into episode 3. This one will be really focused around men's mental health, and I suppose the emotional pressures of being a man and a father. And I've called this one the silent battles men fight. And it's something that is discussed sometimes, and then other times it's not. It's almost like a lot of things that we have, I feel, in society at the moment, is we have one day to celebrate mental health, or not celebrate it, that's probably a wrong term, but to shine some light on it, or we have a month to dedicated to men's mental health or female mental health or workplace mental health. But it's something that should be acknowledged every single day. And for me, seeing those posts pop up, I do think they're great. All those events pop up, I think they are wonderful things for people to open a discussion and have a talk about. But I also think they just need to start becoming the norm. And that's why I thought I would talk about this, because there's a lot of silent battles that I face as a man, and especially as a father. And this is something really personal to me, because I did fight a lot of silent battles for a long time, especially going into fatherhood and adolescence as well. There was a lot of stuff that I kept close to heart, and didn't feel like there were sets of ears or people there that I could talk to, or I didn't want to burden people. But I think sometimes the loudest screams that we have are the silent ones, and they're the ones that bottle up and they build up over time, and they can really affect us in the long term. It seems at the point in time when you're holding it all in, that you're being tough, and that's the best place to be for yourself. But down the track, it ends up just becoming a burden for yourself that's so large that you end up exploding, whether it's through like an emotional breakdown or mental breakdown, or you detach yourself so far from other people that you sort of lose a lot of that capability to, I suppose, to function. And it can be extremely difficult, and it's something that can creep up on you pretty quick. I think this episode is probably one that a lot of men need to hear. And it's really about, like I said, the battles that we fight when no one's watching, the kind we just don't like talking about, and especially the kinds of battles that we bury until they break us. And like I've discussed before, I have rebuilt time and time again. I've broken down time and time again. And we really need to be able to, as men, pave the way for our families, ourselves, our society, and really make this an open discussion. I think a lot of the reason of why men don't speak up is that childhood conditioning, that toughen up, boys don't cry mentality that we're all brought up with. I mean, I was always bigger than a lot of other kids at my age, and a lot of people used to say, "Oh, he's so mature for his age," or he acts and conducts himself in such a manner that it's like talking to a young man. And it's, you look at it and you go, "Well, I'm only 8 years old or 10 years old," and that sort of carries with you throughout your life. And it's a certain pressure that we start to carry as we get older, because we are seen as the strong ones, the reliable ones, the ones that people can talk to and put their problems on, and we don't really show any of our own. But what we don't see, I suppose, is what we're keeping behind closed doors is breaking us down and wearing us down, and starts to become a fair bit of anxiety arises because of the pressure we're putting on ourselves. And it is this, like, I suppose, cultural blueprint of silence that, you can have some people's circumstances have a generational, hand me down of emotional suppression, and it is debilitating. And I think we're in a moment now where society's really praising stoicism, but it's punishing vulnerability. And to be vulnerable is one of the best things I believe we can do as men, especially as fathers, because whether you're a father of boys or girls, showing them that you are vulnerable, and showing how you work through your low points gives them a sense of wanting to feel comfortable to come to you and talk to them about their struggles that they're going through. I think society at the moment is extremely tough for young people. You know what they have everything in the grasp of their hands with technology, and it can start to become a very confusing place to them. And when we were younger, I've spoken about it many times to people. Like, we only had a phone to really text and call, and if our credit ran out, tough luck. Whereas kids these days, they can go online and see anything that the world has to offer, and it's a scary place, especially as a dad. And that's another, I suppose, episode we'll be talking about. That societal strain and pressures that we carry as fathers, and worry and anxiety that we carry for our children moving forward, and what their future looks like. But today I really do want to speak about this silent battle that men do carry. I suppose we carry a lot of internal expectations, like I can't fall apart and everyone's relying on me, and it's this illusion we have in our head that emotions equal weakness. And the pressure to be the rock is one of the biggest pressures I think you can carry on yourself. It's innate within us as males and fathers and young boys to be the rock for the family, and be the rock for our parents, and be the rock for everything. And there's no one really there for us to lean on. And I can speak from personal experience, like the the feeling of I can't fall apart because everyone's relying on me. I've spoken about it before, where if I miss a day of work, I feel guilty, and or if I don't go to a certain event, or I don't go to a certain birthday party, or whatever it may be, or social gathering, that people are going to think different of me. And it's because you're carrying so many weights on each shoulder. And the one shoulder is telling you that's the right thing to do, and the other one's telling you it's the right thing for yourself to do. And sometimes it can start to outweigh one another, and you start to carry a lot of tension, a lot of stress, short, sharp, snappy, mentality because you're worn down. You're worrying constantly about everyone else's needs and putting yours last. And I think that starts to then move into area of believing that no one will ever understand, and you start to feel misunderstood. You start, like I said, having a fear of judgment or a fear of burdening family, and I suppose not wanting to add more stress to your partner. And what I spoke about in last episode around my son's soul and raising a child with needs, that's a massive one for me, and that resonates with me a lot because my partner goes through so much, and I think mothers go through so much as well. You know, they're really confined to worrying about the child all the time, and they've gone from having no one really hanging off them apart from you, to now having someone who's so dependent on them, and they don't get a break, and it can start to really wear down your mental health, and it can start to be a huge weight to carry, and then that leads to these silent battles. Um, I suppose you start having internal messaging. I know I do. You start thinking that you should be stronger, or don't bring it up because it's not even that bad, and they don't. People don't need to hear about it, and just keep moving forward and keep grinding and keep working hard, and it starts that sort of mentality towards life becomes very destructive. And there comes a point where you've got to detach yourself from those thoughts and really sit with yourself and sit with a bit of silence and figure out what works for you, what works for your mental state, your physical state, and what really brings you, I suppose, a sense of purpose. And that's something that it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not something that's going to happen very quickly. I still do it now. I have to sit there and regulate myself sometimes by thinking, how do I get out of this situation, or how do I get out of this mental rut? And speaking personally, it's when I do get into those modes and those moments, I feel like everything is breaking down around me. My mental state's obviously shot to shit. My physical side of life, like going to the gym or working out or moving the body apart from work, like work's hard enough as it is, but you start losing those things that bring you joy and bring you happiness, and then you start blaming others for how you're feeling. And at the end of the day, you're the only one that can you know, control how you feel and control how you are. And it's funny that I say that for me personally, because that's something I've got to keep telling myself. I need to keep telling myself that don't let it become such a large thing that it becomes destructive. It's no one else's fault. It's not your fault either. It's just an invisible blanket of pressure that is on you. How do you remove this blanket, or how do you creep that blanket down a bit just to get a little bit more breathing space and a little bit more air? And it gets easier over time, but at when you're in the thick of it and you're in the trenches, it can be very, very hard. And one thing that we do is we become silent. And what silence does to men is it creates an emotional numbness. So your body starts to shut down to protect itself. You start going through life on autopilot, and you smile and tell everyone that you're fine when you're really not. And I've done that so many times over the years. I think I've done that since I was in high school. I would tell people everything's fine, and I'd always be the clown and the fun one, but inside you're just breaking. And that was purely from staying silent because you feel like no one wants to hear your struggles. And it's about working through that and finding the right people and the right avenues to be able to open up and break that silence. We start to become angry, and our response isn't great. Emotional outbursts, mental breakdowns, aggressiveness towards people in the street, for cutting you off or when you're driving. And I suppose anger is just a shield for fear, pain, and confusion. And we use frustration as a safety valve. Like I've gone through so many times in life where the frustration side of things just boils over, and I'm like, fuck, I could just fucking break something, or I could, just put my fucking fist through a wall. And it's not healthy at all. And, some people find avenues such as MMA or boxing or something to let that aggression out and that frustration out. But you also need to be mentally strong enough to be able to sit there and recognize when this is happening and put systems in place, I suppose, so that frustration isn't your safety valve. Because what it does is it affects relationships, it'll affect your work, and it'll affect your parenting. So if you're carrying a certain level of anger in silence, and your partner may do something very small to trigger you, it's all of a sudden the biggest thing in the world. Or if you're at work and someone's not pulling their weight, instead of thinking, well, maybe they've got something going on outside of home, outside of work, at home, or maybe they're just not feeling it today, you move to anger, I see it a lot in construction where team members have an off day and everyone's like, oh, he's fucking useless or he's shit. And I've done that before. I had a boss one day tell me, like, you're fantastic at your job, but no one wants to work with you. Because I used to just tell people, like, fucking pack your shit and go. Because that was my way of expressing the emotions that I had inside of my body instead of being more level-headed. And I think the big one is with parenting. Like, if you carry that silence, your kids know. Kids are very intuitive. They're very switched on. Like, Sol is incredible. Like, he'll say to me, like, what are you feeling, Dada? If my voice even slightly changes or my tone changes. And I'm honest with him. I'll say, like, I'm just pretty frustrated, mate, because, you didn't listen to this, or I'm frustrated because I had a bad day at work, or whatever it may be. But it took me a long time to get to that point because I used to just go, no, nothing, mate, I'm fine. And again, it's that lie that we tell everyone, even our children, because we don't want to burden them with our problems. And what will start to happen over time is you'll start to withdraw from a lot of things in your life. You'll become distant from friends, family. Some people may avoid intimacy with their partner because they're just not feeling it. You start ghosting on social situations and losing connection, I suppose, to your old self. And I think when you're a parent, you get reborn again. You get reborn in such a mature, and I find for a brief period of time, it's almost like an altered state. Like your mind just all of a sudden goes to this protective mode, this protect and provide mode. And you've got to realize that you can only protect your children and your family as best you can. Some things are going to be out of your control. Some things are going to be in other people's hands, like our situation with Sol. And it's about knowing when those feelings are coming on and how to bring yourself back. I've distanced myself, like I have discussed, from a lot of people in my life. Some warranted, more fucking probably warranted than not. But that's just because they're not bringing me the joy or the happiness that I seek in my day to day. And that's nothing of their wrongdoing. That's just who they are. And you start to grow over time and realize you can't please everyone, but there are people that are worth pleasing because they're the ones who will stick by you. But the number one person to please is yourself. What you don't want to do, I suppose, is start overworking as a coping mechanism. You do get into cycles of burnout, and you start to believe that if I'm busy, well, I won't feel it, and you sort of bottle it up. And I've been there time and time again, where work's just gotten too much. I've put everything into it, and then I'm like, I don't even fucking care. Like, I don't care about what I'm doing. And then all of a, I don't care about where we're at on this project or what we're doing here, or if this gets ready by tomorrow, whatever. Like, I don't care. And who starts to suffer, I suppose, is you, but also the people who are employing you feel, they start to suffer, and it becomes a cycle, and a toxic cycle for yourself. And if you want to alleviate yourself of the pressure of feeling like you need to be a good employee and a good colleague, it's all about maintaining a healthy work or relationship with work. And again, I talk about it, but I'm also working on that. It's not something that I've mastered, but it's something that I'm trying to teach myself now, that, I feel I'm made for a greater purpose. And I feel a lot of people are, a lot of people that I talk to are feeling the exact same way as I am. And you need to approach work in a different manner. Some people love their job and they give it 120% every day, and that's amazing. If you can find that, they say if you enjoy doing what you do, then you'll never work a day in your life. And that's incredible. And I'm not envious of those people. I feel joy for them and happiness, because I would love to be at that point one day. But consuming yourself with work for the betterment, I don't even know if that's a word, but for the betterment of someone else's reward, I don't find that appealing to me whatsoever. And you will easily wear yourself out, and you will easily fall in and out of highs and lows by approaching your life and your working life, I suppose, like that. And you'll end up getting yourself to a breaking point where, you'll have an anxiety attack, emotional breakdown. I have so many quiet moments of collapse in my car where I'm just alone in the car, or I'm having even just a shower, or even late at night, where I just catch myself in these thoughts where I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Like, why am I even doing this? This isn't what I want to be doing. This isn't what I'm destined to do. I'm made for something greater. I'm made for something more. But again, it's having to sit there with yourself and have these hard conversations. And what I see and what I hear from a lot of men that I speak to, and fathers, is that they break before they admit they're struggling. And, I've done that so many times over the years, especially when we had Sol and we went through everything with him, and we still do. Like, I bottle so much up and don't discuss it with people. And it wears on my mind day in, day out, 24/7. And then I get to a point where I completely break down. I won't go into work. I won't show up, to an event. I won't have that lunch date with a mate, or socialize with people, whatever it may be, because I'm struggling so much that it's almost debilitating. Like, I'll get bad headaches, like migraines almost, where I just am that worn out mentally from carrying the pressure of life, that I can't even function on simple things. I'll have days where I'm at work, and so much is going on that people are talking to me and I don't even comprehend what they're saying. And I look and I go like, shit, where did the day go? I don't even remember having those conversations, or I forget things. I forget key information that I need. And it's a work in progress, and something that needs to keep being worked at and worked on. But it is something that we need to make note of and approach in a whole different manner. I mean, the weight of being a man in the modern world is an extremely huge weight to carry. You've got the pressure of being a provider, you've got your financial stress, you feel responsible for your family's stability, a lot of fear around failing your partner and your children. I I think about that all the time. Like, I feel guilty whenever I step out of the house and do something that brings me a bit of joy, even if it's just gym or going down to the shops on my own, or going and catching up with mates for a night because, you feel like you're doing something that your partner doesn't get the luxury of doing, or you're missing out on beautiful time with your children. And you need to realize that you've kind of got to be able to step away from that mentality and allow yourself some time to do what brings you joy or what brings you purpose. And the pressure of this intensifies a lot in my situation with raising a child with health needs like Sol. Like there's sometimes where I'll book stuff in, whether it's going to a music studio, whether it's even just recording this podcast, or going to the gym or catching up with mates, and it's an overcast, perfect day for him to be able to go outside because of his light sensitivities. And I say yes and no to going constantly to the point where my wife's like, you want to go, just go. Go and enjoy it. You've booked this in, go and have fun. And then I don't actually enjoy it when I'm there because I'm constantly thinking like, fuck, I should be at home and I should be giving more of myself to my family and especially to Sol. But knowing that few hours that I am out is going to hold my mental state in a better spot for the long term is something that I've had to really work at and teach myself. You start to have a lot of work life imbalance being a man in the modern world, and you do long hours. Like in construction, there's times where you'll do 60 plus hours a week. If you're on the tools like I am, it's physical, it's exhausting. And then you get home and you're like, the house is chaos, the kids are chaos, everyone's in a mood, and you're like, fucking, why am I working so hard? Like, be grateful that I'm doing this. And you've got to realize that they are grateful. It's just no one is ever going to be 100% happy on the same day. And what you're doing is bringing obviously stability into the home, but is all those hours away from home really worth it? Like with the cost of living and everything at the moment, I know it's very hard for people. It's we've only sort of just felt the relief of it from selling our house and not having a mortgage at the moment to pay for. But there were weeks where it was like, shit, I didn't do 60 hours this week, I only did 50. And you start to carry a lot of pressure and there's little time to rest, connect, or decompress from it. Especially when it gets that, you've worked a 10-hour day, you get home, there's still dishes to be done, the kids have got to be showered, they've got to be put to bed, and you've been up since 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's now, 6 o'clock at night, and you just want to sit down and chill out, and you can't. And it does become debilitating. And that's why at the moment, like, I'm really working hard on finding a space where I can go to work every day and have some fulfillment and some purpose, but also allow me to have that work-life balance that I've lost over time. And I have lost it. And I think it's because of just my nature. I'm a natural leader. And I feel like a lot of places and companies do take that for granted. Instead of just allowing you to go do your job and the job you've signed up for, they always want more and more and more. And in construction, it's a fucking toxic mentality that they carry. And then you've got to deal with all the bullshit that comes with if you don't do the overtime or you don't put in as much care as someone who owns a business. But you really need to sit back and go, I'm going to go there, do my job, and I'm going to go home. And I have this conversation with my dad a lot because he sort of said to me, he did it a lot when he was younger, and he goes, one day I just realized there's all these other fucking people in the office and who are just doing the bare minimum or actually not the bare minimum, what they actually signed up to do. And they go home and they're far less stressed. And that's the approach he has to his work. And I'm not saying that's the correct way. Some people may think it's not, but I'm finding over time that the work-life imbalance should be more shifted towards an imbalance in how much time you are at work compared to, and it can balance out the lifestyle. And I'm working very hard in the background on achieving that. But a lot of people don't have that either, because they are under a lot of financial pressure, especially a lot of fathers. And you start to get a lot of identity confusion. You lose yourself to work and to fatherhood and responsibility, and you sort of think like, who am I outside of this? And you lose a lot of passion. You lose a lot of hobbies, friendships over time. And I've always said to people, like, if you lose friendships throughout fatherhood, that's not your fault. You're doing exactly what you need to be doing: protect and provide and be there for your family and watch your kids grow. And if you lose friends over that, then that's their problem. That's not your problem. And that's a mentality I've had for a very long time. But I suppose the losing of passions and hobbies, like I said, like I make music and I like going to the gym, and um, I start to really lose the motivation to do those things. And I'm very lucky that I've got some people who keep me on track and reach out to me and say, like, hey man, you got any more beats coming through, or really like the track you release, keep it up, or whatever it may be. But when you start to lose that um, passion for the things that you love and the passions you have over time, you start to feel like I've got nothing outside of what I'm doing. And it's about stepping back and I suppose taking the time to start to value the time you do get to do things. Um, I see this a lot uh, just in society, and I suppose it's social comparisons. So you start seeing other dads and families thriving, and you feel like you're behind, or you're carrying shame for not having it all together. And you've got to realize that a lot of this social comparison stuff is all a facade. Just because someone's fucking living their best life on a yacht with their two kids doesn't mean that behind closed doors they don't have problems, and that they haven't had their life consumed into that imbalance of work and life as well. Um, Feeling like you're behind is a big one. I've thought that a lot over the years. Like I had a lot of debt when I was younger, just from stupidity and credit cards and personal loans. And, I moved away to WA to pay all that off. And people thought I was leaving because, I'd had enough of Melbourne. I wanted to get out, but I knew the only way for me to get ahead was to separate myself from the rat race and the same day to day bullshit, and go and work really hard for a few years to pay everything off. And that allowed me to come back and get a house and all that. But I still feel like I'm behind. Like I lost so many years because of me carrying that for so long. And thank God my wife, as I have noted a few times, is incredible. And she got me through all that. And we worked really hard together to pay whatever I needed to pay off and get into a financial spot where we can have a little bit more financial freedom. But in saying that, like we still don't have full financial freedom. There's still bills to be paid and food to be put on the table and plans to be made, and they all require money. And so you're always going to feel like you are behind. But the moment you stop comparing yourselves to others is the moment you'll start realizing you're sort of where you need to be. The impact that carrying silence and this weight has on your relationships and fatherhood is huge. There's a lot of emotional shutdown, and a lot silence creates a lot of distance between partners, whether it's dating or whether it is married. Especially in marriage, silence speaks volumes, and you need to realize that speaking to one another and creating a safe space for one another is the most beautiful thing you can do, and will create a lot of longevity in your relationship. And that's just my opinion. Again, I haven't, like I've said, I'm not a coach or I'm not a practitioner, but what I've come to realize is silence in a relationship will break a relationship. So create a safe space for your partner and allow them to facilitate a safe space for you. Even if you feel understood, um, or misunderstood, sorry, even if you feel misunderstood, make sure that you both set your boundaries about what you do and don't like, find what fills each other's cup, and, do your utmost best to try and keep each other's cup as full as it can be. Because you got to understand that, a lot of women probably feel shut out by the way we react and the way we carry ourselves as fathers when we are having emotional shutdowns. And we need to allow them to see that what our problems are really affect us and how we navigate through it. Because I've come to realize that, you know, words are just words. It's actions that will create positive outcomes. So if there's a certain way that you speak or a certain way you approach things and they don't like that, it's about catching yourself when you're getting into the mode of doing it again and adjusting how you approach it, or having reflection afterwards and being able to talk about it in a positive environment and a civil environment. You start to have communication breakdowns as well. You become short and blunt and withdrawn, and you struggle to articulate your emotions. And you've like I've said before, you feel like you're being judged or dismissed. And I've been there a lot, and I think it's more about coming to a conversation like that with your partner, coming to those conversations with a well thought out topic, I suppose it is. And I've said to a few people, like, if you're having issues, like when you've got your downtime, maybe write some stuff down that really affects you, because it's hard in the spur of the moment to come up with ideas and really get your point across. So write some things down and talk to them, and then it will get easier over time. But what people don't see is a lot of the issues that men carry, especially fathers, is you're always under pressure. So you're trying to be present at home when you're mentally exhausted. You feel really guilty about not having enough energy. I get that all the time. Like, we'll have big days where we've been pouring and, concrete and big slabs, or been on the tools flat out all day, nail bag on, and it weighs a ton and it's hot. And then you got to come home and chase around a 1-year-old who's, walking around like he's drunk because he's got that wobble in his step because he's learning to walk. And you've got a 4-year-old who's just so chaotic, but beautifully chaotic. And you feel so guilty about not having the energy to be on their level. And I think what it is again, it's being open and being honest and saying to your partner, my capacity this afternoon is I can only really do this. And it may just be cooking dinner, but then you'll realize that if you just stick to your capability or your capacity that you have, all of a sudden things start to become a lot easier. You'll start having a laugh. You'll start hearing the children having a laugh with your partner or whatever it may be, and your mood's all of a sudden boosted. There's a lot of anxiety about the future of your family, your future. I think about this all the time. And it can put you in some dark places. It's put me in a lot of dark places over the years. And again, I think it's just being present in the current moment. Like we none of us have a crystal ball to be able to see what the future holds. I wish we all wish we did. But what you need to realize is you're carrying the world and you feel like you're failing your kids. And I find that the quickest way you can bring on that feeling of failing your kids is to not be present with them in the current moment. There are things like in our situation where we're always worried about the future for Soul and what it looks like and what our journey ahead as a family is going to look like. It's very hard for us. Like, we're trying to move and obviously find a new home, but where do we go? Where do we go? If we go there, then he needs a surgery in a month. They're going to be dragged back, and I would have just started a job there. Or it can become exhausting, the anxiety. But again, we really need to focus on noting when it's happening and bringing ourselves back to reality and regulating ourselves. By carrying a lot of this silence and pressure too, you start to put this real hidden strain on love that you have in life. Your family starts to, slowly and silently fracture. Little resentments begin to grow, especially again in construction. You start to become resentful of a lot of people. Just how they are, how they carry themselves, how the morale is at work. And your connection will fade if your emotions aren't spoken. And your internal battles as a father and as a man shape the home. So if you're coming home every day and you're not yourself, which is fine, may I add, but if you're coming home and you're constantly worn out, run down, snappy, short, sharp, your home will be shaped in a completely different way than you want it to be. And I feel that what you need to realize is all that stress and is all that worry and is all that anxiety worth not having harmony in your home? Because it's not. So if you're worrying about something at work that you can't control, you're worrying about something that a friend has said, or you're worrying about something that family have done, fuck all of it. Fuck all that noise. Worry about what is right in front of you when you walk in that door and be as present as you can be. There are a lot of dark places that men go. There's a lot of feeling of failure. I'm not enough. I'm letting everyone down, or I can't keep doing this. And that feeling of failure, again, is my mental state to a T, day in, day out. If I get short and sharp with my kids and then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm not fit to be a dad. When really it's like I'm carrying all this pressure. It was one small moment. You can repair it by talking to them on their level and saying, sorry, I reacted the way I did. I reacted that way because of XYZ. And if you keep feeling like you're letting everyone down, you're really at the core just letting yourself down. You need to realize that you're not responsible for everyone else's feelings and emotions, and they're not responsible for yours. And the I can't keep doing this, man, that's me every day. Like every day, at least once a day, I text my wife going like, I fucking hate this work. I can't do this shit anymore. And it's about knowing that it's going to get easier. And what can you do outside of your day-to-day 9 to 5, I suppose, to then forecast something down the track that aligns better with what you want to achieve? A dark place that we do go is loneliness. I've spoken about it briefly before, but you can be surrounded by people and feel completely alone, or feel unseen, be disconnected, or, want connection and don't know how to ask for it. And fatherhood is a lonely place, I feel. And I feel like being a man in the current modern world is a very lonely place, because a lot of the time we're told what to think and feel and what to say, and we almost get told what our opinions need to be, not what our opinions actually are. And because we bottle all this in, when we do let all this out, these opinions and views on life and whatever it may be, politics and whatever it is, whatever your niche is, when we do speak our mind, we're crucified for it, because it doesn't align with what society wants it to align with, I suppose. And then from that, there's a shame cycle that starts. You're ashamed of your emotions, you suppress them, then they intensify, which then creates more shame. And shame will slowly start to turn into self-neglect. And I've said it and I'll keep saying it, it's a journey of progression, not perfection. And by neglecting yourself mentally and physically, you're neglecting everyone that means something to you. So looking after yourself is paramount for positive outcomes moving forward. And I suppose you have a lot of silent suffering, and I view it as, a lot of men will die with their story still inside them. And when pain goes unspoken, it can be a very hard place. Like in the previous episode 2, I spoke about, writing a letter to my wife and saying that I'm not going to be here anymore. I never actually told her about that until probably 6 to 12 months ago. And it broke her completely emotionally. And I think back now and I'm like, there's been so many times over the years where I bet if I had just called a friend or I had just called my father or whoever it may be and been vulnerable and allowed them to feel my struggle, it probably would have pulled me back to reality pretty quick. But it's just an example of how by not speaking up, pain can turn into something catastrophic. So we need to make sure that we're not suffering in silence. We are vulnerable, we are open, we are honest, and we are free with our emotions. Because if we're not, it can end with a lot of pain that it is causing you. I suppose how men can begin to heal is just by starting small, little baby steps. But you need to start somewhere. And what opening up could look like is just, saying to your wife, sparking a conversation. How are you? How have you been? Anything you want to talk about? It sometimes can be weaving your way into a conversation with a relative or a friend and just being open and honest with them. I feel like in my circumstance, a lot of the time people want to know about Sol and how he is because they care, but like I felt like for so long I shouldn't talk about it and how it was affecting me because people don't need to hear it. And you need to realize that you don't need to cry on a couch or on a car drive when you're on your own. Just talk, write things down, and have those open conversations with people, and then you'll find that people will start talking to you about their grievances and their problems, and then all of a sudden there's things that you can relate to, and you're like, well, I tried this, and then they can go, well, I tried that, and all of a sudden you start to feel better about the situation and what you're feeling. There's a huge importance of male connection, having really good mates, having honest conversations, and have men who support one another. Like I said, I'm very lucky that I've got a fantastic father-in-law. I've got a fantastic father. My father's incredible, and I'd speak to him on the regular. When we're living far away, I'd speak to him nearly every day. And sometimes it was the same stuff. Like it was all just like a roundabout of the same topics. But yeah, I don't know, it just made me feel really good knowing that I have that connection with my dad because some guys don't. I've got a fantastic brother-in-law. I've got a fantastic soon-to-be brother-in-law, hopefully. I've got wonderful mates. Like I said, I've got guys who I've been mates with 20 years. I've got guys who have been mates with since day one of year 7. I've got guys from everywhere that, over the years I've worked with, and you don't think you're going to make mates down the track as you get older, but you make some of your best mates even then. And one of them's fantastic, and I speak to him all the time. He's older than me, and he's really like a pillar of wisdom, I suppose. And I really look up to him, and we talk on the regular, and we used to work together, and he's just a wonderful guy. And but it's also outside of that male connection is seeking help without shame, and that could be therapy, support groups, talking to a GP, getting a mental health plan in place, online communities, or even just a podcast like this. Like if this is helping anyone in any way, then that's incredible, because that's all I want from this, is to help people. And like I said to you, it's part of my healing too. The therapy side of things, like I've found that a social work is great for me, and a psychologist wasn't, but doesn't mean that a psychologist isn't great for you. I'd really like to turn this walk into like a support group too, where we can have fathers come down, or have a dad's catch up where everyone brings their kids, and we all, we can all talk about the stuff that, men want to talk about in a free and open space, about, what they're carrying at home or at work, or, how do they navigate this certain way. And you'll learn so much off people, in those scenarios. But definitely, like, if you're feeling down and out, and go and seek some help, and don't feel shameful about it. It's probably the best thing you can do. Um, and give yourself permission to feel. So, say that I'm struggling, and understand the emotions, that, they don't make you weak, and redefine your strength. And this is something I work on all the time. And I've sort of, come to terms now with that, emotions don't make you weak. By not expressing your emotions, that'll make you weak. That'll wear you down. That'll break the best of them. Talk about it. Don't bottle it up. You need to be able to reconnect with yourself, your hobbies, move your body, have some time alone, be creative if that's your thing. Like, I'm back into the swing of making music and doing this podcast now, and journaling. It could just be on your notes in your phone, or it could be in a book, but just do things to reconnect with yourself, and re-spark that love for life again. And what you need to see is that healing isn't a quick fix. Healing actually looks a lot like a slow, non-linear, and sometimes messy, but a massive life-changing thing. And slow and steady wins the race. And again, it's progression, not perfection. And that's what healing is. You'll get to a point where you feel really good, you'll have a breakdown, rebuild again. You haven't failed, you've just hit a roadblock. And I've said it to people before. Sometimes you have to take 2 steps, 3 steps back to be able to take 1 step forward. And that's what healing is. For me personally, anyway, that's how it looks. It's working at it each day. And you don't have to consciously make an effort to be like, oh, I'm healing, I need to heal. It's like it'll come naturally. But you need to put the work in. It's no different to going to the gym. You go to the gym, and you do biceps, and you feel massive, and you're like, I'm an absolute unit. Look at me. You walk around like a hero. And then all of a sudden, the next day it's gone. But if you keep working at building those muscles in the gym, all of a sudden that becomes the norm. You're walking around like a unit all the time, but it's slow, and it takes time, and it's all about progression. And add extras on as you go. Don't go like, I'm going to journal, I'm going to go see this. I'm going to break it down real simple. So start having those open conversations with people. Start being honest with yourself, honest with your needs, honest with your thoughts, honest with how you feel. And you'll start to see over time that it'll all pay off. That's pretty much a lot of what I wanted to discuss in this episode. It's really a message to men that are listening, and fathers that are listening. I just want the people who are paying attention and who are on this journey to know, like, you're not alone. You're not broken. You really don't need to carry everything. Your pain is very valid. And the strongest thing you can do is speak. You need to understand that your family needs you. They need just you, not the perfect version of you, because we're never going to find the perfect version of us. They just need you, and they need you there, and they need you present. And just remember that you are worthy of rest. You're worthy of care, and you're worthy of support. Go and get it. Go and get the support you need. Have the rest you require, and seek the care that you feel will better yourself as well. That could be self-care, or it could be care from an external party. You're allowed to hurt, you're allowed to feel, and you're allowed to ask for help. Strength isn't silence, strength is honesty. I just would like to say thank you to everyone who has tuned into this one. I hope this one has been really helpful, and it's a bit more of a quick fire one than the second episode. I would love you guys to share this episode, especially with a young man, father, any men who are listening. I just want to remind you that this is a space for honesty. It's a space for reflection. It's a space for vulnerability, and it's a space for any emotion, and all emotions are welcome. Just remember that the actions that follow those emotions speak volumes. You can reach out if you want, follow along on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple podcasts, whatever you are listening to. The next episode that we will be getting into, coming, I suppose, next week or the week after, will be sort of learning to carry the weight. And it'll be a lot around coping mechanisms, I suppose, for overwhelmed fathers, something very close to my heart, something that I've had to work on a lot of the time. And I'll share some of the coping mechanisms that I've used, but I'll also be showing some research into ones that seem to pay off in the long run and short term as well. So again, thank you very much for joining into the walk. I appreciate every set of ears that jumps on board with this. And again, every like, share, comment, whatever it may be, subscription, follow, whatever it is, speaks volumes for the growth of this community. So thank you very much. I'm Jake Donnelly, and this is The Walk.